Greetings and salutations, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. We are playing World End Economica again, and last time round we took the advice given to us by Barton to try and make that last bit of profit that we need to pay off the debt for everyone in the neighborhood. We have 1 hour to go on Monday to trade as much as we can to pull this off. Let's find out how this is all going to play out, because the news hasn't dropped yet for this stock. So whether or not the price will drop the way they need it to is yet to be seen. Buy orders came out again as I thought about that, and I could hear the sound of Hagana's breath getting taken away. As if she was looking at the tidal glass on the table, her breath slowed as she watched the price fluctuate. I knew that she was thinking, "Stop, stop, stop," as she prayed. Though I believed Barton, at some point in time I had clenched my fist so much that it was dripping with sweat. Was I an idiot? Right as I was criticizing myself, the stock price finally stopped at 1,089.
Hey, will it be all right?
Hagana asked once more. She was nervous. Right as I was wiping my palm, I responded, "Have some faith." That was all I could say.
But the price has not gone down. Looking at any other period of time, such a statistical result is...
Calculation error. I said that to stop Hagana from repeating the same thing again. I was more surprised that I interrupted Hagana than I was at her displeased expression. I became aware that my tone had become stronger. You said that there would be errors in calculations. I added those words on to show that I wasn't angry.
That is true.
Then it must be that. Besides, I didn't say any more, but Hagana's program wasn't complete. It was wrong occasionally. Especially during the last trades of the investment contest, Hagana's calculation was totally off the mark. In terms of the possibility, that was only natural. But this time, it was going to cost real money. There was real human cost for a large number of people. The fates of myself, Chris, and a lot of others were at stake. If we failed here, a lot of people would be left out in the cold. Coming here from Earth, being oppressed by the strong, everything they owned got taken away through gritting teeth, while only the ones who took away their stuff amassed a fortune. Right now, for the sake of the dreams of many people, I stood firm. Despite that, why couldn't Hagana trust me at all? Hagana's anxiety-filled face was getting darker and darker. Intermittently, she stole glances at me, wanting to say that it would have been best to just close out all positions. To be honest, if we stuck to the basics of trading up until now, we would have all stopped trading a while ago. For the sake of gaining profits, what was needed was simple. Don't have losses. That was why, if losses started to appear, positions would be closed. That way, losses would be kept to an absolute minimum, and the small amounts of profit could be preserved. But this wasn't that kind of trading. It wasn't that kind of trading. Why did Hagana not understand that? I was filled with irritation when I suddenly realized something. I looked at Hagana as if to repel her again, and Hagana returned my look timidly. Within my chest, the words, "Could it be?" were in control. Could it be that Hagana had inadvertently said it? This trading affected a great number of people's dreams. The dream that good fortune had finally come down upon us was also affected. Thus, for myself, this was but a skirmish in order to enter Schrödinger Street, but Hagana was different. Hagana's dream was not affected. Hagana's dream was for myself, Lisa, probably Chris, and anyone else close to her to be able to quietly live together in this church. You could say that it wasn't greedy. You could say that it was idyllic. But it wasn't even funny that for such a trivial dream, Hagana's earnest hope was right within view. If that were the case, then didn't Hagana think that way? That if we were to fail here, that I would not leave her? A was B, and thus if B was C, then A had to be C. Hagana's straightforward thought process meant that this was more than a clear possibility. It was childish and pitifully awkward way of thinking. Time continued to move on, and soon it was 4:15. I still had a sell order in reserve. When I knew that the price would finally drop, if the price only went up, only selling would lead to bigger profits. But Hagana accepted my hesitation.
Hal?
Hagana called my name. It was an anxious voice that sounded like it would be crushed. But I pretended like I didn't hear her. I sympathized with Hagana's simple dream here, but if I didn't go with the best investment at the best time with the best technique, then I couldn't be an investor. I wouldn't be an investor. I stared at the screen. Hagana no longer stole looks, and I was painfully aware that she was looking right at me.
Hal!
Shut up! I yelled at her unintentionally. Hagana did not narrow her eyes. Her eyes were like those of a scolded puppy. My bad. I said that as I returned to the screen. The news wasn't coming. When would it come out? The buy orders trickled in one by one. Was it coming? Why wasn't it coming yet? Hagana worked slowly at her terminal. I stole a glance at her and saw that the expected price range had taken on an irregular shape. Based on the estimates, a severe increase was predicted. My eyes returned to the computer. It was true that, given the circumstances, I would have started making buys. But big trades were always like that. In order to make big profits, it was necessary to make moves opposite of those of the idiotic masses. When it came to buying and selling, you couldn't have one without the other, just as one person making a profit would require another taking a loss. I was not wrong. This was not wrong. The ones who were wrong were the unknowing masses. I waited for those capable of thinking. I was waiting, after all. Even though I looked at Hagana as she tried to get my attention, I knew what she was thinking. The time hit 4:30, which left us with 30 minutes. When was the news going to come out? Unsurprisingly, I was also growing impatient. So I brought up Barton's email address and typed out a single sentence. Was this really going to work? When I was about to send it, I hesitated. That moment, a single chime sounded. The sound was from Hagana's program. I had gotten used to this sound, the sound when the specified price range was hit in the program. It was the sound that signaled the coming of countless profits. And the moment I heard it, I was on the verge of tears. With my timidity eliminated, I closed the mail program and returned to the trading screen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Hal!
Hagana yelled. I could feel the world revolving.
Hal, you should hurry and trade.
I couldn't hear any of the words after that. The price had jumped up. A sound rang out when the price was within range of the estimated fluctuation, but so far, it would always veer away from what was hoped for, so it was natural that the price would fluctuate in the other direction. In other words, it was headed towards a big loss. It's fine. It should be fine. So long as the news comes in. My shaky hand grabbed my other shaking hand. With what remained, I made a sell order in one move. The stock price's upward movement stopped. I thought I would laugh, but losses had exceeded 4%. No, this was no more than a temporary thing. It looked more like it should have been one step towards big profits rather than just selling because the price was high. But I questioned myself. But if I really believed in Barton from the bottom of my heart, then I should continue to wait till the price goes higher and then sell. But why wasn't that possible? Why weren't things playing out rationally? From the chair, I could feel my eyes looking somewhere, anywhere away. My self-confidence was falling apart.
The time! What time is it?
4:45. 15 minutes left. The stock price once again started moving upwards. Hagana stood up and grasped my shoulders.
Hal, something is wrong.
Shut up. It should go down. It should have gone down.
But it's going up. Can't you see?
It should go down. It should have gone down. Hagana backed away at my yelling, but she picked up her terminal and thrust it in front of me.
There's no possibility of it going down whatsoever. Statistically, that possibility is...
Don't you remember that we lost during the investment contest because we followed your program? Those words slipped out suddenly. Hagana's face looked as if those words pierced her heart as she staggered backwards. With a thump, her body gave in and she collapsed to the ground. She was completely expressionless, as if she were a mannequin. Damn it! I cursed to no one in particular as I bit my lip and returned to the screen. News. Where was it? If only the news would come, dear Lord. I prayed. I had prayed. I prayed to God. And then it was 4:47 in the afternoon. Above the trading screen, the words news announcement appeared. At that moment, I might have peed my pants briefly. My hands moved, putting together all that remained of the funds, remembering it was time to sell it all off. My mind was filled with a strange sense of impatience, nervousness, and even drunkenness as my knees started to shake. I made it in time. I was right, after all. As I caught my breath, the red text of the news announcement disappeared and the news itself rolled in. The trading screen stopped. Everyone that was involved in trading held their breath. The numbers on the trading screen stopped moving completely.
News announcement. Stock number 3201, Carlyle Investment.
Hurry, hurry, next, what's next? I stared intently at the screen, while my body could only react as if there was only bad news to be had. And then, the red text continued to scroll by. I could not grasp the meaning of those words.
Given doubts about maintaining liquidity, he expressed confidence at a press conference that working capital was more than plentiful.
What I didn't understand about the meaning in these words was that it wasn't clear just how these words could be utilized. I wasn't sure if it was a deluge of sweat or tears that I wiped away as I looked at the news once more.
Capital was provided by Mr. Alan Schwartz, a fund manager at the notable investment fund Pax Romana. Over 2 billion mules were provided, forming the basis for the redevelopment project.
I couldn't continue reading after that. All I could do was breathe. The stock price continued to go up until it hit the daily limit. Minus 32%. On top of that, this was just today. If everything in the news was correct, then tomorrow and the day after that, certainly the price would hit the daily limit each time. How much more were the losses going to extend to? If there was nothing to sell, then nothing could be bought back. When it came to margin selling, there were conditions involved if one tried to buy it all back at a later time. I was hit with a strong bout of nausea. But I swallowed deeply and steadied myself as I clicked on the news once more. Impossible. There absolutely had to be a mistake. Please let them be talking about a different stock. I opened up the news announcement. I could swear I heard my heart stop. I wondered if that was how it was supposed to sound. Picture 1, CEO Jack Lunny and Mr. Alan Schwartz. That was all the caption stated. But the one pictured there was without a doubt Barton. Ah. I wasn't sure if that was breathing or groaning. What I knew was a sound signaled the arrival of an email. Like a trained dog, or perhaps a programmed robot, I opened the email. The sender was Barton. You thought with your brain and traded, did you not? A short, single sentence. Did I think it through myself? Had I not left it to someone else to help me decide? Had I not left such an important decision for someone else to decide for me? Think less like a machine. Think like a human. The purpose of that was... My vision became dark, and I heard the sound of my head hitting my computer screen.
Hal!
And then I thought I heard Hagana's voice, and that was the last thing I remembered. I found out about everything 4 days later, after I had fallen into a coma. In the end, our position was at minus 264%. Pushing through with 720,000 mules and ending at minus 264% left us with a liability of 2 million mules. There was no point in talking about paying back loans. In the end, the savings of the townspeople was wiped out. and they were then burdened with a debt that they absolutely could not pay. But after Lisa's unhurried explanation, it appeared that it was all reduced to 50,000 mules. In the evening on the day after I collapsed, apparently the phone rang. A man, who addressed himself as Barton, wanted to liquidate our margin sale position by giving us some stock at a specific value. Bought at that price, the loan ended up at 50,000 mules. Carlyle Investments stock continued to hit the daily high price limit consecutively and couldn't be sold at all. Since the price continued to rise the next day, there was no way that such a proposition would be turned down. Hagana, who knew Barton's name from the mails of my computer, resisted vigorously, but Lisa accepted the terms. Everything was back to normal, or rather, it was better to say that everything was lost. As for Chris's father and all the others who entrusted us with their money, I had thought that they would all come by to kill me, but instead, they visited me in my hospital room. And on top of that, they thanked me for letting them dream of the possibilities. That hurt me more than having abusive words hurled at me. They were used to losing, used to falling into despair. They were strong enough to not bear any ill will towards others. If it weren't for Lisa, I would probably be dead right now. On the other hand, I realized that I couldn't see Hagana anywhere. Hagana had been in the church the whole time, and appeared that she too had been run ragged. I had taken a lot of emotional shock, and my body wasn't able to move. Once I regained consciousness, I did not return right away. It wasn't until 10 days later that I returned pathetically to the church in a wheelchair. Lisa offered to wheel me. That day the weather was nice on the moon, nicer than any easygoing day. Along the road, Lisa said something nonchalantly.
The church. I've decided to sell it.
I didn't so much as move.
There's still the loan money to deal with. If I just sold what I could, it would take care of everyone's living expenses too.
Even if tears formed in my eyes, I did not have the strength to show any sadness.
But I'm glad we made it in time to get you discharged from the hospital. And well, I figured it would be a good time for lunch too. Chris may come by as well. Saralt is going to prepare food himself too. He thinks he is so smart after I taught him how to cook.
Lisa continued with small talk. She wasn't faking being happy, and knowing that hurt quite a lot. For Lisa and the others, this had been an everyday thing back on Earth. Just being alive was more than enough, right? And she had experience being able to say things like that with a smile.
Saralt looked into things.
And just like that, Lisa changed subjects.
Barton, he said, would always do those kind of things. Even when his company got taken over, Barton was one of the people behind the curtains.
Saralt said that he had harbored a lot of resentment long ago, and seemed about to suffer divine punishment at any moment. But Saralt said he doesn't go in for the killing blow.
When he called us, he was probably not trying to pin us against the wall or anything, Saralt said. Is that what you call kindness? I'm not so sure, though.
Lisa laughed once more. Her laugh was mingled with a sigh, a very fatigued laugh.
There are all sorts of people in this world.
Yeah, that really is true. I couldn't say for sure that I had been deceived, only because I myself wasn't ready to acknowledge that. Couldn't it have been a misunderstanding, or perhaps even a mistake? But in reality, everything was lost. Barton apparently used different aliases for different purposes. Even the census showed each of those aliases. He was the example of a person who could do anything so long as money and personal connections were available. I had miscalculated my own position. Thus, I took a great loss. I was willing to accept that. I was just some brat, after all.
But, well, we do have our bonds left over. Isn't that so, Hal?
Lisa reached around from behind me and pinched my cheek. I could not move my body, nor could I change my facial expression. Lisa sighed.
Are you mad that I contacted your family?
Lisa asked me. We passed by the front of the steamed bun shop. That was where the old lady gave me an extra because she thought that Chris was too skinny and asked me to give her one. Without doubting me an ounce, she had handed me a 3-mool bun. I was surprised by that, yet why did I think Barton would so easily divulge information worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of mools? This was hubris.
Since it's you, I'm sure you will get better.
That's what Lisa said.
They said it was something psychological. The bruise on your forehead is probably going to leave a mark, though. But you're a guy, after all. Scars are a badge of honor.
I could not respond. Lisa explained to me what the doctors had said. It wasn't because of medical reasons that I couldn't move. Supposedly some wiring within my mind had come undone. Because of that, I couldn't make myself move, and I couldn't even make facial expressions. Moreover, Lisa did her best to convince the doctor to hide my identity. There were medical bills to deal with, though, so that was impossible. After my identity had been extracted via iris scan and fingerprinting, my family was soon notified. I wasn't angry with Lisa at all. I wouldn't have any qualms even if Lisa killed me.
Well, I'm going to feed you plenty today. No need to feel embarrassed about it, okay?
She giggled. Her laugh seemed dry. In front of the church, Saralt and Chris waited, as did Toyama. Aside from how I was, I didn't imagine I would see them again. But just like people visiting someone at the hospital, they were all smiles. A gathering of losers. Though that's what I thought, I couldn't help but feel very happy to see them waiting for me.
Now then, everyone, let's go to the garden on the 3rd floor.
At Lisa's words, everyone headed towards the 3rd floor.
I'm gonna let you thoroughly enjoy my lap pillow service.
She said that as we passed through the living room. A wonderful smell wafted through the living room, making me wonder if it was the lingering smell of food being made. And then, just when we got to the 2nd floor, Chris ran off to get something.
I need to get the drinks. Thanks for your help. Be careful. Oh, looks like you're getting used to this, aren't you, Chris? Hey.
Chris shrugged her shoulders and smiled, both her arms filled with drinks as she moved carefully.
Where is Hagana?
At Lisa's question, Chris stopped climbing the steps, then walked back down slowly. And then she pointed at the door to her room. Lisa nodded, and Chris's face stiffened somewhat as she started climbing the stairs again.
She can be a difficult child.
Though Lisa said that, it was clear that she didn't really believe her own words. That was how I felt anyway. Hagana wasn't a difficult person. She was honest and straightforward, but just awkward.
Hagana, Hagana.
Lisa did that on purpose as she knocked on her door. Hagana did not respond.
Geez, it's Hal. Hal's come home.
Though Lisa said that, there was still no response. Lisa looked back at me and shrugged her shoulders.
Hagana, I'm opening the door.
And with that, she opened the door. The last time that door opened, it was night. It was the time Hagana had a screaming match with Toyama, and then she had elbowed Lisa in the face. Hagana had curled into a ball in the corner of her room and shook all over. This time, it wasn't the same as that failure from before. She was all right, wasn't she? I imagined she was all right. Hagana wouldn't break before something like that. We fought together. There's no way she would be this weak. But there was a deliberate, discomforting pain in my heart. Without a doubt, Hagana did not stop trading for the sake of her own dreams. Through it all, she stayed rational. The one who thought with her head was Hagana after all. Despite that, I rejected Hagana. At the last moment, I rejected her. For that, I wanted to apologize.
Huh?
As Lisa murmured that, I came to my senses. Lisa turned away from the door and walked past me before heading to the living room. She opened and closed the door to the toilet, then headed towards the church. The door to Hagana's room was left open as it was. Before long, with a stiffened face, Lisa passed me again and ran up the stairs. In the middle of this fine day, I was left alone. Beyond the half-open door, there was but an empty space. I sat in the wheelchair and closed my eyes. Hal. I recalled Hagana's voice and how she addressed me. Hagana. In the end, what was her real name, anyway? In the midst of this fine day, with this pain in my heart, I felt lightheaded. Hagana had disappeared from the church. Wait. My teenage years like that came to an end. The stock market that day, with no regard to our own circumstances, should have been busy. Oh, wow. I did not see that ending. That is rough. I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought that there was more to Barton than what was being shown to us directly, but I really didn't think it would turn down that path, that he was behind the redevelopment in such a way, that he was playing all of them. That's rough. Oh. That hurts. That is insulting. He played them all. Oh, I need to play episode 2. I need to see how this plays out. No, this is unacceptable. No. and Hagana's run off now. We don't know where she went, because I'm sure she feels responsible, because that's the way her character is. And she's been rejected by Hal now at one of the most crucial times in her life so far. This will not stand. We have to find Hagana. We have to find a way to fight back against Barton or whatever his other aliases are. No, this is not how this ends. We will play episode 2 and we will find how they come back from this, because they are all survivors. They all have hopes and dreams and aspirations. They are not going to just lie down and let this happen. That is unacceptable. Wow. As this is the last episode now, overall, the story, I don't know, considering the way Izuna Hasakura's light novels for the Spice and Wolf series are paced, this didn't feel as well balanced as that other series, as Spice and Wolf. I felt like there were times where this dragged, and times where it just sped forward. I don't know how episode 2 is. I have not looked at it at all. And at the time of this recording, I know episode 3 is finished, but still being translated for English. So, while the full plot has been finished, it's going to take us a little while to get through the next 2 episodes to find out just how this plays out. The story, yes, was frustrating at times, and I know in the recordings I've said that. It was a very slow burn. But by the end of this full game of episode 1 of World End Economica, there is a solid story here. The characters have already shown growth, but there is a lot more to them than what's been shown. Like, Hal has come a long way from just being a pretentious douche. Hagana has really come out of her shell, granted only to be shattered a bit. And we've been introduced to a lot of the other characters and more or less how they might play in this overall story arc. I'm hoping episodes 2 and 3 show a bit more of the other side characters a bit, because this was really boiling down to Hal and Hagana. I mean, yes, Lisa played a solid part, but for the most part it was really Hal and Hagana. Everyone else kind of revolved around that once the motivations really set in. As for the artwork, I loved it. It was a great style. The little intro video thing that we got like 10-15 videos in was fantastic. I loved it. It got me really excited to play the rest of this game. I wish there were more of those throughout the game. Even if they were 15-20 seconds long, it would really add to it. Soundtrack was fantastic. I loved it. I wish there were more loops so that it was more steady and constant throughout, so you didn't have such periods of background silence. But that's probably partly pacing from how I've been recording it versus others just reading it. And I hope episode 2 has more backgrounds, because there were plenty of times where the screen was just black or white. I feel like at the end they started adding a bit more to kind of balance it out, but there were plenty of black and white times where I would have loved to have something in the background, anything beyond just black or white. So we'll have to see in episode 2 and 3 how they go from here. At this point, I mean, wow, I really wasn't expecting that twist. That really threw me, which, hey, good storytelling. Points to the writers on that one. By all means, post in the comments below what you've thought of this story overall now that we've reached the end. Did you feel that it was a solid storyline, and Do you want to see what the rest of it's going to be? Like, will we track down Hagana? Will we be able to recoup from this? How is it all going to boil down? We'll find out in the new series of Game Break for World End Economica Episode 2, once we start that off. And by all means, also post in the comments what you've thought of this series and my efforts so far in doing a voice-acted, non-professionally, obviously, version of visual novels. I always appreciate commentary as to how that's going. I know I did not stay solid with voices throughout for who gets what voice or style. But did you at least have fun with it? Did you enjoy it? Post in the comments. Let's continue the conversations there. And I will see you all next time. Thank you for joining me.